Hi, so in this session today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making a fruit souffle, but I'm going to be doing it a different technique. I'm not going to be doing it with a creme patisserie base. Basically what we're going to be doing is thickening the fruit puree with a cornflour slurry, so cornflour and water thickened to a jam. Then I'm going to cool the base a little bit, and then I'm going to fold my egg white through. So a simpler version, different way to do the souffle. And also what I'm going to do is show you something similar but just a little bit different for the souffle moulds themselves. So I've frozen these moulds. I've already put one layer of butter on, and what I'm going to do is just spend a minute again just giving the moulds another layer of butter. Go around and give them a really good thick layer of butter, make sure the bottom's done, right around the tops, just as I did when we did the chocolate souffles. Just to mention as well, really what you want is a nice straight souffle dish. If you have one where it's really open at the top, very small at the bottom, it's going to push through. You want the souffle to have enough mix underneath so it pushes through. If you saw the demonstration on the MSK, he had a very, very deep souffle, and because he had a very deep souffle mould, it meant that more could push up, so it had even more rise. If you have a shallow dish, you're then only going to get a shallow rise, and if there's there's hardly any mix underneath, it's all at the top, very open, ramekin at the top, very small inside, it's not going to be able to push up quite as much. Okay, so just be wary of that. Picking the right mould is very important. So just get that done. And then what I'm going to do, just so it's different this time, going to then sprinkle it with sugar. So again, with the MSK yesterday, he used ground ginger nuts. People can use cocoa. I've seen grated chocolate in there as well, different things. And some people like to have something sprinkled inside the ramekin as well. And they say it just helps the mix to climb up the ramekin, up the sides of the dish. Last one, quickly, melt the butter just a little bit more. I found as well, some of them maybe look like they're stuck in places. Some of your souffles, and if it catches at all, the top of that ramekin, it won't rise. Okay? So the preparation is always so important for this. So all I'm going to do now is sprinkle some caster sugar in all the way around, and then tap it off. Make sure I just clean off all my edges. What I'm going to do is just keep those stored in the fridge until ready to use. So now we're going to start on the actual base. So here I've actually got a nectarine puree. This is just something I had left in the freezer, so I've just pureed up the nectarines. I've got 200 grams of puree. I've got 100 grams of sugar. And then we've got 20 grams of corn flour, 20 grams of water. This is a slightly smaller amount than what's in the recipe book. It's going to make about 300 grams of base, and you can see you can make them as individual soufflés, 50 grams of base, 50 grams of sugar, 70 egg white. What I'm going to do, make sure there's no lumps in the corn flour. Just mix that in. So now I'm just going to keep stirring it. Of course, now I've added the starch, I've added the corn flour. It could catch. It's already quite thick. There's a lot of sugar in there. The puree is quite thick, and then you've added corn flour, so it could catch. So what I want to do is continue to stir this, and I want it till it's really nice and thick. And it's got a jam consistency. So it's just starting to thicken now. It's starting to warm through. Starting to steam. This is the simplest way to make a souffle, unless you're going to use Ultratex. And all I'm going to do is make sure it comes to the boil. I'm almost going to cook it out a bit like with crepe patisserie, where I'm whisking it continuously so it doesn't catch. What I want to see is it's bubbling away, so it's the corn flour is definitely cooked out, in that base. So now, I've been boiling it, whisking it, a few minutes on the stove. It's now got to a jam consistency. All I'm going to do pour that into the bowl, I'm going to cling film the surface, just leave it on the side, just to cool down. I can put it in the fridge, it doesn't matter either, or I can keep it in the fridge, and that will keep for at least a week as a base for a souffle. And then I'm going to prepare my eggs, get my meringue, and start getting it in the oven. Again, really important not to over whisk your egg. Okay, so it's nice and stiff without going grainy. Just add a little bit of that meringue first, just to loosen it up. Add the rest of the egg white. with your spatula again, make sure it's will come off the bottom. What I'd say, because this mix, by the time you've added that cornflour, it is almost like jam, so it is a little bit sticky, so it's just sticking to the bottom of the bowl a little bit, so I just want to make sure it's thoroughly mixed in. I think this mix is probably half this mixture again, and just use, whereas I'm times in one souffle by 4, doing 200 grams of souffle base, 200 sugar, 240 egg white. That is quite a lot. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, it could make a few more, probably make 6 to 8 souffles, so have a look to see how many it actually produces. So it says one souffle for 50 grams, so for 50 grams of sugar, 70 egg white. I'm thinking that won't make perhaps 2 souffles rather than 1 souffle, but it all depends on the size of your dishes. So I'm just going to pipe that into the mould. This one's a very light, moussey mixture. Ready? Yeah, so I've got so much left, I reckon that could make 8, maybe even 10 souffles if I times this recipe by 4. So what I'd do is I'd perhaps make half the amount of base, you just need 100 grams of fruit puree. I'll bring the costs of everything down, and then just perhaps double this recipe, so you use 100 grams of souffle base, 100 grams of sugar, 140 egg white, make enough. Gonna just don't forget to flatten off your souffles on the top. Make them so you get a nice flat finish to the top of your souffle. And so now I'm just going to get my finger, just run it around, and not knocking off the butter which is on the top of the ramekin either. To stick, but we need to see that defined line on the top of your souffle. One on this recipe in the book, say 5 to 6 minutes, so I'm going to put this one in 6 minutes, see how it's risen, and I'll let you know from there. So I've left these souffles in for 7 minutes. As you can see, they've risen really, really well. I'm really happy with the result. Got a nice colour that defined on the top. I'm just going to finish it off with some ice and sugar on the top. And what I've done is I've just made a little sauce out of the puree. Obviously I used a nectarine puree, so I've just added a bit more sugar and made a sauce just to serve with it, just to pour into the middle. So So I'll just put that onto there, just to be served with it. And I can just put my spoon in to see how it's cooked. Lovely. I think it could have even worked for 6 minutes. It had risen enough. So 6 minutes, just like the recipe tells you. And look, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour some of that in the middle, and that can just intensify that nectarine flavour. Delicious. Yeah, I'd go for 6 minutes because I just think that it could be slightly less cooked. So 6 minutes works perfect.